Hello guys, this is Raj Pakhare and welcome to my new tutorial. This was the most requested tutorial by you guys, Meteor Strike. So in this video we're gonna see how to make this by using particle flow and FUME FX. As you can see, it's a very high scale simulation and it can take a lot of time, so it depends on your computer configuration how it is gonna take time. So let's get started with it. So we are in 3ds Max, and first we need to create a particle flow. We're going to show that meteors are showering from the sky. So the base, we can start with the standard flow, and I can hide these, and let's expand this. Now this has to be in the air and a lot bigger size, so let's bump up the values, length and width, so it's gonna shower from the sky. And let's emission stop till 300 or 200. Here we go, we have particles falling down. Let's give it an angle. And in display, I can set it as geometry, but we need to pick geometry for that. So right now we don't need this shape. You can just delete it and create a new shape instance. So shape instance, move it up, and I'm gonna just merge my fragments. So these fragments are created in Ray5. You can just use any fragments. I'm just using the stones as a meteors. These are just a group, and we're gonna pick this group in a shape instance. So click on the group. But as you can see, it is coming as a group. It's not coming as a single pieces. So we need to define group members and also multi-shape random order. So that will randomly pick pieces from the group. So we'll have some variation in the meteor stones. And we can add some scale variation. And let's reduce the number of particles. We don't need that much crazy meteor shower rain, and make this viewport 100%. It's always better to work with a few particles in the beginning. So mostly I use drag, wind, gravity, and I always create them. So if I need them, I can directly pick it from here. And in this case, we need a reflector so that they can collide to ground. Place it in the center. And we need to add a test collision spawn. So what this will do is it will spawn more particles when it will collide the deflector. So I'm gonna change the color so we can differentiate when it goes to the next event, and pick the deflector and check if it's working. Yes, you can see the colors are changing. Right now I want around 50 offsprings, variation, divergence. Of course they are going crazy because there's no gravity or force. So let's add force, move it up, and I'm gonna pick gravity. And now the gravity is acting, but there's no collision. So we need one more collision in this event. And we don't want spawn, so we can just take collision and move it up. Add deflector. So now we have particles colliding. Of course, they're going crazy. So we need to modify the deflector parameters. So reduce the bounce, add some variation, chaos, friction. It's too less, so let's pump it up. And what we can do is we can try to reduce the gravity. So select the gravity and reduce the influence. Check again. It should look like a large scale. So we can add rotation, random rotation, random 3D. So they will add some variation in the direction, so it doesn't look in the same direction. And of course, play with the scale, how much you want. Now in this event, we need to change the size. So we can just use this shape instance and just copy it over here and reduce the size. Here we go. So this is our basic setup done. Select it and change the angle a bit. As you can see, they're colliding and moving to the left. I'm going to move this here. And I can add split amount. Now what this will do is we can create one more event. We can split certain particles to another event and add some variation in that. So I'm going to just duplicate this using shift key, and everything should be the same, but you can just delete this and connect the split amount to second event. Now let's rename our events. This can be frags, rename frag 01. So it's frag 02. And I can rename this as, or just Meteor. Now you can just change the color so we can differentiate between the events. Or you can just make it look at as circles, it will be much more faster. Same here. Okay, so we can add speed. Just speed. And maybe speed as random horizontal. So you can just select random horizontal. Make it a little lighter so it's much more visible. And you can see some particles are just spreading like a shock wave. And the sum event is like going ahead, carry forwarding the inheritance speed of the meteor. Change this to half frame so you have a better cancellation in the viewport. And I'm gonna modify this inherited variation divergence. Increase bounce a bit. Here we go. But it's bouncing like crazy. So maybe we can add a track to reduce the speed. But it's looking good. Apart from that crazy bounce. Okay, so I'm gonna create a FUME FX and add width, and now this should be pretty large size. I think we can reduce the particle size, the area size of the emitter. As you can see, it's going almost to 1000. And I'm just scale it down a bit. Move it in the grid. Check if it's covering the complete area. And modify it. Try to optimize your grid, FUME FX grid. And later on we can just bump it up. So I'm gonna set this back to geometry. And I think the meteor size is too much, so I'm just gonna scale it down a bit. And what we can do is we can add a spin operator. So this will make the meteor spin and look cool. And as you can see, the event which we added and frags are also rotating, so we can add a operator stop. So in this operator we can just stop the position or rotation. So I'm just gonna tick rotation. So in this event the particles will stop rotating. So the main meteor is gonna spin but not the other events. Alright, so I'm gonna reduce the particles even more. And let's create a particle source. Move it on side. Let's name this as main meteor. Add the particle source and just pick the first event, the meteor event. And select, move down, and from here we can check the size of the particle of the FUME FX and try to match it as close as possible to the size of the meteor. So modify that. Of course it is not exactly gonna match, so try to be as close as possible. I'm gonna just reduce these parameters so that we can have a faster preview simulation. And of course, this for some vorticity, velvet turbulence. And of course, these parameters, as you can see, I'm using 2.5 turbulence. That's because of the scale. And you can see I have reduced the scale to 1.5. So it's a large scale simulation. I'm going to add some expansion, then burn rate variation, create fire, create smoke. And as you can see, the simulation is going to 16 GB. If you see, I'm using a 16-core 32-thread CPU, and I have like 32 GB memory. So it depends on your computer, how much you're gonna use, how much you can do simulation. Right now, we can just reduce it. So increase the spacing. As you can see, the sim up is increasing. And something around 150 to 200 should be good for preview. And let's start the simulation. Enable the GPU viewport preview. As you can see, as soon as it enters simulation, you can just set it to -Z so that the smoke also collides with the ground. And I'm gonna modify the color. Set this to more dusty color. You can use any colors here. I'm just trying to add some contrast in the smoke so you can see much more detail with some color variation. And I'm gonna pump up the opacity. For the fire, right click and key mode, and let's change the color. Change this to black. As you can see, we are adding a contrast in the fire. Much more fiery. Of course, we're gonna do post-production after we render this, so you can modify the colors in the After Effects or any compositing software which you want. But it's better to add some contrast in the fire. It will pump up the details in the fire. Alright, something like this. And what you can modify, reduce the burn rate so we have longer trail for the Meteor. And increase the temperature. Reduce the smoke and pump up the smoke over here. Let's preview. We need more smoke. There's more fire right now. But the trail is coming really good. What we can do is we can add a light so we can get some shadows in the viewport. Basic 3-point lighting. And just gonna move these lights up. Turn on the shadows, change the color, do it for the all lights. Let's add this much more warmer, and this can stay white. And go in shadow parameters, turn on atmospheric shadows. This is the most important thing. And we can select our grid and go in rendering or illumination and add those lights. I'm going to pick all these three. Go into rendering tab, and smoke parameters, cast shadows, receive shadows on. So here we go. We can see some shadows right now. And what else can we modify? We can increase the smoke. Let's try it again. This is much better. And what else can we do? Maybe try to reduce the opacity of the fire. Right now, if you play this, and see, there's no simulation for fragments. So what I'm going to do is I just duplicate this. Say OK, and create a new frags particle source and pick these particles. So right now I'm going to pick frag 1 and 2, and these two events are going to be used in this particle source, and we need to add it. So add a new particle source, fragments, and let's modify this. Now in this case the radius will be much more smaller. Something like this. A little bit of variation in the size, and in the main Meteor, let's turn that off. If you leave that display on, it becomes much more, the viewport becomes slower, so it's better to turn it off and simulate and then work with it. Okay, now you can see the fragments also emitting fire. Okay, now let's see. As you can see, the fire, when to modify it, maybe turn down the radius because there's too much fire in the fragments, and increase the burn rate to have less fire, then increase the smoke density, turbulence, and modify the turbulent noise. What else can we do? Increase the dissipation strength in the smoke, and pump this value now. Increase the quality to 7, and this we can just keep it same default. Okay, so I'm going to modify the parameters a bit. What we can do is main Meteor, or let's say frag, I'm gonna reduce the temperature. So as you can see, just because of the higher temperature, the smoke is moving very fast upwards. The higher the temperature, it will move up. The lower, it will move down. So let's pump up the quality and simulate it. As you can see, the smoke is rising way too faster. We need to take care of it. And you can see. Okay, so let's increase the smoke of the fragments and select the main meteor. I'm going to reduce the temperature, it's too hot. So the smoke is rising very fast. And I'm gonna just turn this off and open particle flow. And we can add a delete operator. As we can see, the particles are not dying, so we have to give them an age, a particle age. And try to reduce the lifespan. Basically, these particles are emitting fuel. We don't want them to emit fuel for a longer time. So I can just duplicate this over here, make it as an instance. Okay. Close this. And we're gonna simulate it again. Okay, simulation's done. Increase the end frame play to, and increase the quality a bit more. Turn on and try to reduce the radius a bit. It's too large for the size of the meteor. Okay, this is better. Okay, the simulation's done. Okay, so gonna go in rendering settings, set it to HD 1280 by 720 for the preview, and set it up. I'm gonna create a preview. And make sure to turn off the background and set the quality to standard. Increase the quality and create. I'm gonna speed this footage again. The smoke will flicker in the preview, so just ignore that. And I'll turn this off. Adjust my grid, optimize it. We'll just focus on the few meteor. Add some wind. I have a habit to always add a wind in the smoke. It looks really natural. I'm gonna just pick this wind and it's gonna and just assign a material. So to frags, you can assign any texture which you want for your meteor, any of the stones. Just gonna set this color for now, and you select your group and just assign this material. That will automatically update in particle flow. And if you want to use a texture, you can just add a material dynamic or material static operator. There you go. The only thing missing right now is the sparks. So I just copied the instance, so I can just turn on and off from one operator. And let's add some sparks now. And for that, we need one more event. So what I'm gonna do is add one more split amount, copy, and duplicate this event, hook it up, and just let's name this as sparks first, and hook it up to the split amount. And we don't need gravity, we don't need speed, no shape instance, no stop, no rotation, and no collision. So let's display it as lines, change the color. So as you can see, we're having sparks here. You can increase the offspring amount as the events are getting split up, so we need more particles. And you can duplicate the event, change the direction a bit, and name this for spark wind. Add a force, copy, remove the gravity, and add wind. It's too high, so we can reduce the strength. Maybe add turbulence. And I think we need drag to reduce the speed. So put this up, and force, pick, click. So this will reduce the speed of the sparks. I'm going to increase the influence. That's better. And what we can do is add a speed. Maybe random horizontal. That's better. A little bit divergence. And we can add a collision. Just duplicate your collision, so it doesn't go below the surface. And add some variation. Reduce the speed a bit. And pump up the values for drag. So set this up to 15, 15, 15. Okay, this is much better. And we need to add a life to those sparks, as there's no age right now. So turn on the delete operator by age and reduce it. Maybe increase it a bit. I'm gonna add one more operator, shape, and we can just set it as spheres or box, whichever you like, and tone down the size. So these particles are renderable. We can add a motion blur in After Effects later on. I'll set this up to circles for now, or maybe lines. Lines usually shows your direction, which they're moving. Okay, so now what we can do is bump up the quality. So it depends how much RAM you have. So for example, if you have like 16 GB or 32 GB, so I wouldn't go above 24 GB or something like that. And if you have a 16 GB, you can tone it up in accordingly. You should always keep some RAM for your software. So of course it will take time if you want more quality. My simulation and the video took around like 2 days for simulation and 2 days for rendering, which was on old computer on i7 with 32 GB RAM. And that simulation was around like 20 GB, 20 GB simulation. And right now this is like 2.7 GB. So this isn't very high quality stuff, but you got the idea. And I'm gonna speed this up. Okay, the simulation's done. Let's create a preview. Set this to 75. Alright guys, the preview is done. So this is what we have. So we can still modify it accordingly. We can still modify this the way the fragments move, bounce, and just be creative, experiment with it, modify the parameters, simulate it, create previews. So you can have different versions, you can select whichever you like. Gonna pump this up for the final simulation and increase the size of it, and then you can have the Meteor Rain and just increase the number of particles and you'll have like crazy shower. So always focus on small elements and then try to pump it, and in similar way you can create this effect. As you can see, with the good lighting and some adding glow and motion blur in After Effects. Camera shake. Now this slow motion I created in Twixtor in After Effects. So this was a post slow motion. It looks cool. So be creative, go ahead and modify, and definitely try to show me if you have a link. Just post it in the comments and subscribe to my channel. I'll be posting more and more videos for you guys, and I'll see you next time.